Welcome to Oyate Today. Oyate in Lakota means people. Brought to you by Native Sun News Today. Hi, welcome to Oyate Today. I am your host, Richie Richards. Oyate Today is produced by Tim and Jackie Gallego. Tim is an enrolled member of the Oglala Sioux tribe. Our guest tonight is Mr. George Wilson, Executive Director of LIFT, Lakota Indian Family Trust on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. I want to thank you for being here tonight, Mr. Wilson.
Thank you for having me.
And could you talk to me a little bit about LIFT and for our viewers that are not familiar with your program and what it is that you're doing on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation?
LIFT is a 501c3 corporation recognized under IRS as a nonprofit. I chartered it under the Oglala Sioux Tribes Chapter 44 Corporations Code, and I believe it was the first corporation chartered under the tribe. And I did that because I have a strong interest in governance, and I wanted to charter under the tribe, not the state. LIFT was designed to meet the unmet needs of people on the reservation of Pine Ridge families. And I developed LIFT based on my experience over 45 years working with tribes in social and economic development and recognizing the gaps in service delivery systems and programs. And I tried to design LIFT to meet those unmet needs. So I work with an entire family unit when I work with a client. I don't just work with one person in that family, I work with the whole family. And it provides more support for the individuals. As an example, I have one family that I'm working with now. They have one member in jail in Pennington County. And I have a volunteer here in Rapid City that goes into the jail and meets with that person and does paperwork. And when that person gets out, we'll be putting him into a vocational rehabilitation program, hopefully at the Hot Rod Institute here in Rapid. And he'll come out after a period of time, if he finishes, with a certificate in upholstery, and he'll be able to make a living on the reservation doing upholstery work. And when I look at the family and the persons in need, every member of the family has needs. You know, the babies need diapers or formula, and the elders need medical attention, transportation, and we just try to advocate for them. And we have many resources within the tribe. There are around 70 federally funded programs on Pine Ridge that are supposed to be providing these services. And LIFT serves as an advocate for our people, and we kind of push the buttons and pull the strings to get these programs to deliver the services they're supposed to be delivering.
Sure. So it's no accident that the acronym LIFT, L-I-F-T, is what it is.
Yeah. LIFT is to lift you up and to give you that assistance to get on your feet, you know.
Definitely. Could you talk a little bit about economic development and some of the things that you've worked on in the past in regards to Pine Ridge Indian Reservation?
Yeah, I think, you know, I've been involved with, excuse me, with economic development for 40-some years, intermixed with social development. It goes together. You can't separate the two. Social and economic development's the same thing, in my opinion. And economic development is a very tricky business. And you have to have experience, you have to know what you're doing if you're going to have an impact. You can't just grab somebody off the street and put them in charge of economic development, which happens way too often. Sure. I did a lot of research, and I found out that our people, the tribal membership, if you go back 100 years, 50 years, 75 years, 40 years, everybody in the tribe had a role to play. They had a position within the tribe where they were important for this particular thing that they was doing. We had people that prepared funerals, prepared for celebrations and ceremonies. We had people that cut wood. We had people that hunted and gathered. We had warriors that protected people. Everybody had a role. And as the dominant society took over, we lost those roles. We lost those positions. So the people flounder, they're out there. Our people aren't geared up, in my opinion, to be production line workers. They're not geared up. You know, we've tried to bring in big jobs, you know, like John Deere Corporation to come in and set up an assembly plant, the Moxon factory, the fish hook factory. None of those things really worked because the workforce is not geared up to punch clocks. You know, they're more specifically oriented towards doing a specific job that benefits a specific part of their community. And that's where we should target, I think, economic development. Finding a way to find these people that are already doing these things and find a way to put money in their pockets.
It's very important to understand from your perspective that economic development and social development are intertwined, and they're one and the same basically from your perspective. And that's why basically you've started LIFT. And so when we talk about the social development happening in Pine Ridge or not happening in Pine Ridge, what are some of those key issues currently? Although we can kind of envision or you know, put those thoughts together ourselves in regards to what are the issues, but from your perspective and somebody that's been in the trenches basically, what do you see some of those challenges as?
Well, the biggest thing right now is drugs and law and order. We have, like, where I live in, on Crazy Horse housing area, there's 5 drug dealers within a stone's throw from my house. I know where they're at, the police know where they're at, the council knows where they're at, the feds know where they're at. Nothing's done. And their story is, well, we're building a case. You know, we've got this big spider web thing and we're gonna trap the big spider. In the meantime, people are dying, you know. Children are being abused, neglected. I go back to the 40s and 50s and 60s. I'm 76 years old. I've been around a while. In the 50s and 60s, when I was young and out raising cane, you know, and acting up, my dad would go call Sunshine Janice over and he'd say, Shine, go get Speck and straighten him out. He's acting like a jughead. And Sunshine would come pick me up and spot Janice and a couple, you know, Vincent Brewer, the other cops, they'd come grab me and stick me in the back seat, drive me out and read me the riot act, you know. And it'd straighten me out. We don't have that kind of community policing. You know, we don't have it. Nowadays, the police are conditioned to let the CIs and the feds do all the heavy lifting, and they're out chasing, you know, speeders and stuff. In the meantime, we got drug dealers and bootleggers that are just operating wide open, you know. Drugs is the biggest issue that I feel is critical in terms of social dysfunction and the lack of discipline within the family unit. You know, it's really, really bad. You got 9-year-old kids telling their mothers and grandmothers what to do, you know, bossing them around. That's unheard of in our culture.
So that breakdown of the family unit or the family structure and how it's traditionally been, you know, kept or traditionally been in flow basically with the unit of the tribe as a whole, that's directly affected by economic development then, and the lack of jobs, the lack of opportunities, the lack of business. Whereas if these families or these parents or guardians had jobs, things to do, in that regards, there would be less.
Yeah, and when you know that you can deal drugs and make $1,000 a week, you know, and when you know you can do that, and the chances of getting caught are almost zero. About twice a year, the cops come in and make a big show and take down a couple dealers, put them in prison for 10 or 15 years. Don't solve any problems because people come right up behind them to take over. You know, we need to do more transactional arrests. You know, we need to, you know, do it while it's happening, not wait until the feds say, okay, go get them. You know, we need more policing, and that's up to our tribal government and our tribal public safety or police force. It's their job, and they're just not able to do it. The leadership is gone. You know, there's a big article in the paper today. The headline: "Tribal new police chief don't show up." We can't keep a police chief because of tribal politics. We can't keep an attorney general. We can't get an attorney general because of tribal politics.
Sure.
Can't keep a chief judge because of tribal politics.
Sure.
It's intrinsic. It's all woven into this dysfunction.
Sure. Mr. Wilson, we're going to take a break and have a word from our sponsors. When we get back, we'll learn a little bit more about the work of George Wilson and LIFT on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation.
Our school has great students and dedicated teachers, but we need our community volunteers to help us to provide a broader view of the many ways a good education can point to a bright future.
Did someone say volunteer? Our team at Black Hills is here to help. In fact, we sponsor events and projects, and our employees volunteer for organizations throughout the Black Hills, including partnering with schools to help students learn more about life outside the classroom. Extracurricular, extra fun.
You can't predict life's ups and downs. You just give it all you've got to stay on top. But it's easier with a partner like Security First Bank. Since 1898, we've been riding with you through the country's biggest ups and downs. And this is where we'll stay. Security First Bank, a relationship you can count on. Member FDIC.
Native Sun News has been voted the best weekly newspaper in its class for 2015 by the South Dakota and North Dakota Newspaper Associations. You can find a copy of the Native Sun News at many businesses and vending machines in Rapid City and the surrounding area, and on all 9 reservations. We publish every Wednesday, so advertisers and subscribers can reach our diverse readership by calling 605-721-1266. The Native Sun News covers the other side of the story.
Hi, welcome back to Oyate Today. I am your host, Richie Richards. Our guest tonight is George Wilson of Pine Ridge and the Lakota Indian Family Trust Program. So, Mr. Wilson, I understand you spent a little bit of time out in the Pacific Northwest. And as a young man, you were a business executive out there, and you developed a very important program for economic development on the reservation. So if you could tell me a little bit more about that.
Okay, yeah, I was a corporate controller for Grandma Cookie Baking Company, which was a major corporation in the Northwest. It was a family-held corporation. And they recruited me to come to work for them as their controller and business manager. And they wanted to expand services. They're the ones that did the National Girl Scout Cookie Program, and it was a multi-million-dollar company. And I'd been there about 6 months when Mr. Frank Archambault from Standing Rock called me one day, and he asked to have lunch. And he said that he came to recruit me to come to work for the Lummi Indian tribe. I never heard of it before. So we went and ate, and I told him, I said, Mr. Archambault, I said, I'm in a really nice place here where I'm at. I'm in a career program. I'm 25 years old, and I'm doing really well in the corporate world. And I'm getting good benefits and this and that. And he said, well, at least come visit. So I went with him to Lummi up in Bellingham, Washington, next to close to the Canadian border, Vancouver, British Columbia. And I seen how those people were living up there. They were sleeping in wood sheds. They were sleeping in old broken down cars. It was pitiful, It was kind of reminding me of home, I mean, yeah. It was, I'd been living really well. And to be reminded, this is where I come from, And this was in 1969, late 69. And so I went up Saturday, and I met some of the people. Mr. Sam Kagi was the vice chairman of the tribe, and I spent the night with him and his family. And as a guest in their home, I had to sleep in their bed, and they slept on the floor. I mean, it was their way. And I got the bowl of soup which was fish head soup, which I had a hard time eating, you know.
Yeah.
And I just loved those people, you know. When I got to know them, and their kids would come, one of their boys wouldn't leave me alone. He just hung with me and stuff. And Saturday and Sunday, I went out and I looked at their land right on the ocean, you know. And they wanted to do a aquaculture project, fish farming, shellfish farming. And they needed a business manager, someone experienced, and that's what they wanted me for. And Frank had gone to the Bureau of Indian Affairs, and he asked him, please find me an Indian that has been to accounting and finance school and business school. And they found me through the records, BIA relocation records, where I'd gone to school in Cleveland. And that's how they tracked me down. I spent the weekend up there with the Lummi people and with Frank, and I went back to my office Monday morning at Grandma Cookie Company and resigned, and went to work at Lummi. And when I got there, the tribal council, when they met, they told me, you know, we was going to do this big aquaculture project, a multi-million-dollar project, and I could tell right away that the council really didn't know much of anything about business or economic development or finance or anything. And he was at the mercy of these non-Indian consultants and contractors that wanted to do it. And so I talked to him, and I started having programs, classes in the evening in the CAP office, where the council reps that wanted to would come in and we'd talk about development, economic development, business, and things like that. And then I went to the Bureau of Indian Affairs office in Everett, Washington, to see if I could get some help from the BIA. And geez, I walked in the door, and this big old Indian voice hollered out, "Wilson, what the hell are you doing here?" You know. And I looked around the corner. It was Peter Three Stars, a tribal member from Pine Ridge, an old friend of the family. And he was the superintendent of the BIA office there in Everett, Washington. It was just a shock, fate. And so we sat down. I told him what we was doing. He said, "Well, write something up." He said, "These people need help." So I wrote this thing, and it was a development program for tribal council members that come in on board and how they're supposed to do their jobs. And I called it the Tribal Government Development Program, TGDP. Indians are great at acronyms. I don't know if you've noticed. We come up with them, But anyway, so that was adopted in the Pacific Northwest, and I understand nationally many tribes adopted that as a training program for their council. And this is back before there was much money in tribal government. It was shortly after the Indian Self-Determination and Education Assistance Act, which is Public Law 93-638. It was after that had been adopted in 1968 under the Nixon administration. And that was designed to give tribes self-governance and help with education. And I ended up on a national committee with amendments to the 638, which led to self-governance, which provided money for tribes and indirect costs. Big deal. And so that's how I got into it. And we did the Lummi Indian Aquaculture Project. And by the way, that's where LIFT come from. When I was there, I set up a foundation for scholarships for the kids based on the program. We called it the Lummi Indian Foundation Trust. So LIFT stuck in my mind. When I started my own nonprofit in Pine Ridge, I stole LIFT from myself, or from LIFT and Lummi. And the Lummi people were beautiful people. I still go visit them every year or so. They're a wonderful, wonderful people. And that's where I got my hellfire and brimstone working with the federal government and my attitude about development. They call it kind of gonzo development, like a Hunter Thompson thing, Mr. Three Stars is a wonderful guy. We was trying to buy an accounting machine, a Burroughs accounting machine. We didn't have an infrastructure. We didn't have anything, not even a set of ledgers. And I wanted an accounting machine for the project. It cost $18,000. We didn't have any money, so I went to the bureau, and Mr. Three Stars got up to go to the bathroom. I noticed a purchase order on his desk it was already signed, so I snatched it. And I took it down to the Burroughs Company, and they delivered the machine and gave us training and taught us how to do it, you know, how to use the machine. About a month later, I got a call from Pete 3 Stars, and he called me everything but a human being, you know. He said, "You don't know how much trouble I'm in, you know, because I stole the purchase order to get the accounting machine." And I learned back then, when there was no resources, that you had to get real creative to get the resources.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Mr. Wilson, we're going to take a break. When we get back, we'll learn a little bit more about what is currently needed in today's society for sustaining a tribal government, tribal economic governance. So we'll be back after a word from our sponsors.
If you're talking, they will hear you.
Why are we getting killed like this?
Kyle's not here. Got caught drinking beer in the park a couple of nights ago.
Really?
Yeah, 0 tolerance. He's out for the season.
Harsh.
Hey, he knew not to drink. We've made that clear to all of our kids, right?
No, not really.
Bill, if we don't tell them what we expect and why they shouldn't drink, how are they gonna know?
Talk. They hear you.
You can do it if you try.
If youth and family services weren't available in this community, there would be a lot of unmet basic needs. Very few organizations do as good a job as youth and family services, getting every ounce of usefulness out of people's time, their dollars that they donate.
Youth and family services help so many kids. It's a great value to the community.
Join me, because together we help kids.
I used to think news is news. It's all the same, but it's not. There's a big difference between local broadcast news and cable news. See, local stations are part of my community, connecting me to local news, weather, and sports on every device. It makes sense. Get the news from the people I trust who actually live here. No agenda, no bias like on cable shout shows or social media, just facts. For news I can trust, I stay local. Support your local stations. Text TV to 52886 today.
If youth and family services weren't available in this community, there would be a lot of unmet basic needs. Very few organizations do as good a job as youth and family services, getting every ounce of usefulness out of people's time, their dollars that they donate.
Youth and family services help so many kids. It's a great value to the community.
Join me, because together we help kids.
Hi, welcome back to Oyate Today. I am your host, Richie Richards. Our guest tonight is Mr. George Wilson of LIFT, Lakota Indian Family Trust on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. Before the break, sir, we were talking a little bit about the early stages of economic development on reservations, well, actually out in the Pacific Northwest. But in today's society, why do we as tribal governments have a difficult time developing, sustaining economies on the reservations, from your perspective, from your years of experience, excuse me?
Yeah, I think it boils down to structure, you know, like organizational management, organizational systems design. That's what I learned in the corporate world. Systems analysis. This isn't working. Why isn't it working? How do you fix it? You know. So in our case as tribes, I think it goes back to our constitutions. A lot of the people that don't really understand tribal governance too well, they blame what they call the IRA government. They blame it for everything, you know, all the dysfunction and the unmet needs. All the IRA government is a constitutional form of government that we own. It's ours. And right now, our tribe's undergoing a constitutional reform process. And it's not being well attended. I went to the first meeting, and there was only, I think, 3 people outside of the staff and the council reps there, you know, and a lot of the people cry and complain about, you know, we can't trust our government, we can't do this, we can't do that. Well, where are they when we have a chance to really make meaningful change? And that's what's happening now. We have this opportunity and people aren't taking advantage of it. But it goes to constitutional reform. There's no accountability right now. The tribal government has omnipotent power. They can do anything they want. And even the Supreme Court of the United States will tell you that, You know, the tribal council is omnipotent. With their decisions are final, they're not reviewable, you know, by the people. We have no power. But we have the power to change our constitution, to put some enforcement and accountability into that, that document. And we're not very good at doing that. And we're missing an opportunity right now to do it. And I'm doing my best to try and get some, like I want a balanced budget amendment in our constitutional reform.
I'm sorry, but what would be a part of that amendment? What is it exactly that you're...
I would want an open process on formulating a budget of our general fund monies, unencumbered or non-federal money, money from leases that belong to the people. That money's ours. And you're talking about maybe 12, 20 million a year. It's hard to know. That money should be budgeted to meet our needs and our priorities, like a drug and alcohol treatment program.
So where's that money currently being used for? Or where's that money currently going?
A lot of it's for travel, you know, and extraneous costs of the council. It's estimated that a council rep ends up spending $150,000 to $200,000 a year on extraneous expenses. Vehicle costs, repairs, meetings, whatever you want to call it, and there's no accountability. If we had a process where we built the budget and people had input, we could put our needs in there, like the drug and alcohol treatment. We don't have a treatment program that's functional on the reservation. We have a couple programs, and what they do is they give you a chit or a ticket saying, here, go to the Black Hills, or go to Wyoming or someplace and get help. We need help in our reservation, in our homes, you know, on our land. And we have the resources to do it. We just don't have the political will. And we could create political will through a budget process. And a lot of states have adopted a balanced budget process, and it helps the people have a voice in the way the money's spent. We don't have that right now. And then it has to have some accountability built in. We don't have that either. You know, there's no accountability. If I was a council rep, I could do anything I want within reason. You know, I can't go down and grab a knife and go stab people and stuff, but I can almost do that, you know, because there's unlimited power. The tribal president, his only official duty is to carry out the orders of the council. So the council, the president don't really have any power, and they should have plenary power of some sort. They should be able to advance bills or laws, ordinances. Right now they can't, you know, and they're totally under the direction of the council. Council's got total power, unchecked.
Sure. Well, Mr. Wilson, I appreciate your time tonight. This has been a very, very good discussion, and I want to thank you for making Oyate Today a part of your night. Thank you. You've been watching Oyate Today, brought to you by Native Sun News Today.
Yo